locked up a teen accused of another teen that set off a series of retaliation shootings in Old South Baton Rouge.
That shooting started a rash of shootings that occurred in that particular area.
Tonight, the pieces to this criminal puzzle are coming together.
On the evening of November 1st, 2016, Keandre Ricks, known in Baton Rouge by a street and rap name, BBG Boozilla, was back in his neighborhood. That day, Boozilla was reportedly in and around the 2000 block of Nebraska Street, just steps away from his family home. Locals say he had been riding his bike through the neighborhood. Nothing about that night stood out as unusual. In fact, it was likely a night like many others for Boozilla. But just after midnight, Boozilla's final hours came to an end. In the early morning hours of November 2nd, 2016, gunfire rang out on the 2000 block of Nebraska Street, in the heart of South Baton Rouge. Eyewitnesses reported hearing a burst of shots, sharp, close, and unmistakable. Just moments later, Boozilla was found lying in the street, bleeding from multiple gunshot wounds to his upper torso. The paramedics arrived, but there was nothing they could do. Boozilla was pronounced deceased on the scene. According to police reports and eyewitness testimony, Boozilla had been confronted in the street by two men. One of them was carrying a handgun. Without warning, the gunman opened fire. Boozilla fell where he stood. As he lay dying, the second man allegedly rifled through his pockets, searching for valuables before both suspects fled the scene on foot. For Boozilla's mother, the hit was incomprehensible. Her son had passed away just a few yards from home, and she had no answers. "You have to bury your child. This is so wrong," she told WAFB in a televised interview. "They shot my baby down like a dog in the street."
It's like I'm dreaming and I haven't woke up yet. Like I had a bad dream. I'm just waiting on the Lord to wake me up.
Taylor walked us over to where her son's body was found, a place she's visited often, trying to make sense of the senseless.
Then this way he must have fell it right here. Cause they had all right here.
Taylor believed Boozilla's hit wasn't random. He had recently been gaining popularity as a rapper, and she was convinced that his visibility had made him a target. He was cheated out of life, she said. They took his chance. Almost immediately after Boozilla's passing, social media erupted. BBG affiliates flooded Twitter and Instagram with messages and images. In a video interview, BBG Baby Joe, one of Boozilla's closest friends and longtime collaborators, spoke publicly about the loss. He was in jail when it happened.
Boozilla, that was my first like major home and loss, like boo.
How old were you when that happened?
I was 17 when Boo got. I had just turned 17 that year.
And how did that affect you going through that?
Like losing Boo, that fake f***ed me up.
For Baby Joe, Boozilla had been more than a friend. He was the center of the circle. He was the core of us, Joe said. When he passed away, God gave me Youngboy.
When Boo got, I met Youngboy in jail. Me and Youngboy, me and YB, you got me saying Youngboy, me and YB met in jail.
Boozilla and Youngboy are cousins, right?
Yeah, they first cousins.
So you being his, close homeboy, and that being his cousin, that kind of like, kind of made you guys kind of bond and have a friendship?
Yeah, like that, like.
NBA Youngboy, though not publicly vocal at the time, would later reflect on the loss in his music. In his song, Poor One, he paid tribute with the short, cutting line, "I know Boozilla's still with me." Among the musical tributes to Boozilla, BBG Baby Joe released a dedicated track called Boozilla Day. BBG Boozilla wasn't a household name in rap, but in Baton Rouge, his name carried weight. He was young when he passed away, but his legacy was already taking shape. Boozilla had been recording music, releasing tracks on YouTube and SoundCloud, and building a reputation for hard lyrics and street loyalty. But Boozilla was more than a street rapper. He was a cousin of NBA Youngboy and grew up closely tied to the Baton Boy guerrilla movement.
The BBG, what does that actually stand for?
BBG stands for Baton Boy Gorilla.
Together, BBG and NBA represented the south side of Baton Rouge in a growing feud against Top Boy Gorilla, a feud that would soon turn deadly. And yet, like many caught in the middle of the music and streets, Boozilla's story wasn't simple. In 2015, there were rumors of a falling out between Boozilla and NBA Youngboy. Some said it was about money, others about women. At one point, Boozilla even posted a tweet hinting at murder. "The real reason you ain't got hit yet is because of your mama." The tweet was aimed squarely at Youngboy. A clip circulating online even shows Boozilla and Baby Joe threatening Youngboy on video, telling him to pull up. Things got so tense that Youngboy allegedly sought protection from TBG and G Money, who later referenced this in a diss track. "Had me looking for your cousin. He wanted to hit you." That cousin was Boozilla. But time passed. The beef cooled, and by early 2016, they had reconciled. Boozilla tweeted, "Play with NBA or BBG, you must be snorting dope," and began repping NBA alongside BBG. He took on the nickname NBA Boozy. The message was clear. He and Youngboy were back on the same side. Together, they were ready to go to war with anyone who crossed them. The streets of Baton Rouge were already buzzing before Boozilla's body hit the pavement. But in the hours and days that followed, the speculation exploded. Everyone had a theory. Some pointed at rivals. Others pointed at his own circle. In a city divided between BBG and TBG, the list of people who might have wanted Boozilla deceased wasn't short. One of the most persistent rumors involved FL Deuce, a rapper affiliated with the Forever Loyalty crew, an ally of TBG. Boozilla had allegedly robbed members of FL, and in his track, Forgive Me, he had taken direct shots at Deuce by name. In Baton Rouge, a diss like that isn't just music, it's bait. Many believe the line, "Deuce be scared walking through the South," was the final spark that turned the Cold War hot. Some believe that Deuce put a hit out on Boozilla in retaliation. While no formal charges ever connected Deuce to the hit, street rumors persist to this day that his name was floated behind the scenes, especially in connection to FL members who had been shot at earlier that year by BBG affiliates, allegedly including Boozilla. There were those who claimed that a man named G Money was involved, but others disagree due to evidence that G Money and other members of TBG had been hanging with the BBGs before Boozilla was hit. Some briefly entertained the idea that the beef between Boozilla and NBA Youngboy hadn't been squashed, but Youngboy's alliances would soon be made clear through street retaliations. Barely 8 hours after the hit, gunshots rang out again in Old South Baton Rouge. This time, the location had changed, but the intent hadn't. Police were called to Kentucky Street, less than a mile from where Boozilla had been hit, after a car rolled up on a house and opened fire on several people standing outside. According to investigators, the shooters were NBA Youngboy and several of his closest allies, including NBA Big B. Witnesses said they saw two men jump out of the vehicle and begin shooting. In the chaos, one of their own passengers was hit in the neck by return fire. The car fled the scene, but it didn't get far. A flat tire forced them to crash near the LSU lakes. The gunman scattered. The passenger was later hospitalized, but survived. Police quickly tied the shooting to the hit of Boozilla earlier that morning. They weren't guessing. They were certain. Detectives told the press that this was part of a chain reaction of retaliations, and they believed more arrests were coming. A few weeks later, NBA Youngboy was arrested and charged with 2 counts of attempted first-degree hit for the Kentucky Street shooting.
Police have made a second arrest now in a string of shootings that erupted in Old South Baton Rouge last month. 18-year-old rapper Kentrell Gaulden, better known by his stage name NBA Youngboy, is behind bars tonight after being taken into custody by federal authorities before a concert in Austin, Texas.
Eventually, he'd take a plea deal, pleading guilty to aggravated assault with a firearm and receiving a 10-year suspended sentence with 3 years of probation. No prison time. But it was a close call, and Youngboy wasn't the only one moving that day. The very next morning, on November 3rd, the same block where Boozilla passed away was turned into a war zone. Around 9:50 a.m., a man sitting on the porch around 1900 Nebraska Street saw 2 men jump out of a car and fire more than 30 rounds into the home. The same street, the same energy. 37 bullets tore through the house and a parked car. Miraculously, no one was hit, but the message was loud. Police arrested the getaway driver, Derek Goosey, later that evening. Witnesses had identified him in a photo lineup. He was charged with attempted second-degree hit, along with multiple other charges. According to the police report, Goosey drove by the house 3 times. On the 3rd pass, his passenger jumped out and opened fire.
The shooting led to a rash of gunfire in Old South Baton Rouge in the days that followed. Last month, police arrested 20-year-old Derek Geis in connection to a separate shooting on Nebraska. And tonight, police say they've arrested 17-year-old Kentrell Gaulden, a rapper known by his stage name NBA Youngboy, in connection to a drive-by shooting on Kentucky Street. Detectives believe those shootings may have been in retaliation to Rick's and say more arrests are possible as they continue to investigate.
In the days that followed, the streets felt different. Gunfire had already broken out on Kentucky Street within hours of the hit, and another barrage followed on Nebraska Street the next morning. Residents began to speak out, not just about the retaliatory shooting, but about the fear. People were living in a state of panic.
Baton Rouge police are investigating the 3rd shooting in 2 days near Nebraska Street. This recent rash of violence has folks living in that area scared.
We're actually at the intersection of East Harrison and Nebraska Street, just steps away from where that shooting happened earlier today at this home behind me. This is the latest in a string of shootings that have happened in this area over the past few days, and it has residents concerned, many of them saying this is not the neighborhood they grew up in.
One woman told WAFB, "This street ain't never been like this. We're living in danger."
Residents say enough is enough after shots rang out for the 3rd time in 2 days near Nebraska Street in Baton Rouge.
We living in danger. This street ain't never been like this.
Now these days, the parents need to learn their children how to love one another and value life. So many children are being taken away from their family members, and I feel like that's sad.
This is the latest in a rash of recent shootings in the area over the past few days, including one that left an 18-year-old.
Schools in the area were placed on lockdown. Patrols increased, but it wasn't enough to stop the momentum. The streets had their own theories, and the retaliations had already begun. Law enforcement had no one officially in custody for the hit of Keandre Ricks. Not right away. But behind the scenes, detectives were building their case. On March 28, 2017, nearly 5 months after Boozilla was shot down on Nebraska Street, Baton Rouge police arrested their first suspect, Tashawn Coates.
Coates is back in police custody. He's accused of shooting and killing a teen on Nebraska Street late last year.
According to investigators, Coates was the shooter, the one who pulled the trigger and fired multiple rounds into Boozilla's chest. He was charged with second-degree hit. Coates wasn't unknown to the police. Months earlier, in July 2016, he had been arrested for allegedly possessing stolen firearms taken during a pawn shop burglary. Part of what police believed was a stockpile of weapons to retaliate against law enforcement following the Alton Sterling protest. In that case, he was painted as a possible threat to officers. Though he denied any plans to harm police, 10 days after Coates' arrest, police picked up a second man, Monty Carey.
The second man is behind bars for a 2016 murder that led to a series of what police said were retaliation shootings. 18-year-old Keandre Ricks was shot and killed at a home on Nebraska Street last November. Later that day, a second man was found shot in the neck. This week, police arrested and charged 27-year-old Monte Carey for second-degree murder. He joined 18-year-old Tashawn Coates, who was arrested on the same charge last week. Police believe the two men confronted the victim last year and allegedly shot him before running off. Carey is being held on a $300,000 bond.
Witnesses claim Carey was at the scene the night Boozilla was hit, not as a shooter, but as the one who rifled through Boozilla's pockets while he lay dying in the street. He was also charged with second-degree hit, as Louisiana law allows for accomplices to face equal charges in a homicide. According to the police report, Carey and Coates had allegedly planned the hit together. But even with 2 arrests, the case began to unravel. On July 12, 2017, a grand jury declined to indict either man. The case was pre-termitted, meaning the jury didn't find enough evidence to issue an indictment, but they also didn't clear the suspects. Prosecutors promised to keep working the case. We intend to take it back to the grand jury if we can find more witnesses or obtain more evidence, the district attorney's office stated. But no further public updates ever confirmed that the case moved forward. To this day, no one's been convicted for the hit of Keandre Boozilla Ricks. Rest in peace, BBG Boozilla.